All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Masters in Travel. I'm Brianna, and today we're diving into a topic that lies at the very heart of what we do as travel advisors, building relationships with our clients. Whether it's your first call with a potential traveler or a longtime client returning from another adventure, these conversations set the tone for the entire experience. But let's face it, consultation calls can feel tricky for some of us. So, how do we make sure we're connecting with a client as a person while also qualifying them for the right trip? How do we balance gathering the logistics with creating a genuine relationship? To help us unpack this, I'm thrilled to welcome Lucia Taub, a travel expert who has mastered the art of turning consultation calls into relationship building powerhouses. Lisa brings a fresh perspective on relationship marketing, helping us think beyond logistics and focusing on nurturing authentic connections. Together, we're going to explore how to ask the right open-ended questions, how to empower our clients to feel confident in their travels, and create the kind of trust that turns one trip into a lifelong partnership. We might even role play a discovery call for you guys to hear how Lisa approaches this in action. So, if you've ever wondered how to make your consultation calls more impactful or how to re-engage with clients in a meaningful way post-trip, this is going to be the episode for you. Let's dive in. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I know I kind of corralled you into being my podcast guest after you were just simply writing me an email, but I felt like you had such good insight, and especially on this topic of how we engage with our clients and how we form those relationships. And so I thought we could take this topic and really do a deep dive to help other people understand how to do it and why to do it, because there's the how, but there's also the why. And when people understand the why, sometimes the how becomes a little bit easier. So we're going to give practical tools, we're going to give like examples, but to start us off, just give us an idea of like, number one, you came to me with this idea of relationship marketing, which I loved, and I kind of like ran with it. How did you in your past life bring this idea and understanding of relationship marketing and begin to use it as a travel advisor? Where did it come from?
Yeah, sure. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Um, so my former career, before I jumped into travel 9 years ago, I was a consumer and market researcher. So I would interview people about products in their daily lives and how they made a difference or how they were working or not working. And those abilities to sit at a coffee table and talk to somebody about a toothbrush or a baby diaper or a razor are some of those same skills that we need to build relationships with our clients. But kind of that deeper function aspect of it is it's more than about cleaning your teeth. It's why is that so important to you? It's more about, hey, my baby's dry, but why is that so important to you? What difference happens in your daily life when you're using this product? And so it's about that life experience, that self image. And so taking all those kind of emotional cues and the
Mhm.
ability to ask kind of that deeper level question, it kind of digs into the heart and soul of people. Um, I've taken that and translated that over into my travel consultation process. And it's really paying off where I feel like I know these people as family. They're more than just clients and they trust me. They share insights with me about their families and their vacations that are not necessarily travel related. Um, but I do have a really high repeat rate and I love having conversations with my clients. They're really fun and I don't dread them at all. And it's because we've become friends and we talk about more than which airplane ticket do you want or which hotel do you want. We really talk about the whole experience and why it's so important and why travel is so important for them and their families.
So that's really interesting. And I think that, whether or not you consider yourself a people person or great at conversation or an introvert versus as an extrovert, that is kind of, I mean, yes, it plays a part, but at the end of the day, this is a very important part of our job is to be able to connect. This is a people to people, person to person business. And so what you're saying is that the idea of forming relationships really becomes essential to our kind of success as travel advisors, because when we are able to form those relationships, that kind of changes the way we're interacting with our clients, and number one, allows us to actually get to the heart of why do you want this? What are we doing this for? Why is this so important to you? And then number two, be able to take those answers and use them to actually like guide how you create their trip, right? So it's the both and I love that you were able to kind of take this skill that like, okay, well, what does razors or baby wipes or toothbrushes have to do with travel? I always say that like we come with so many skill sets that don't seem obvious, maybe like front and center. But at the end of the day, skill sets that we possess that like really make us good in unique ways at what we do. So you took your unique skill set of like these conversations, these building relationships, this understanding of this like deeper why, and used it really successfully in how you connect and engage with clients in those first interactions. So well
Yeah,
done.
yes. So what to build on that, it we always talk about we want to use the term advisor and not agent, right?
Mhm.
And this ability to have this deeper conversation helps build that trust and credibility so that the client starts to view us more than an order taker or more
Mhm.
than someone who's just a bot on the other end of the phone that's going to, fulfill that reservation request. By building this relationship and getting into the why and getting into some of their personal motivations, they start to trust us and then they start to believe that, oh, this advisor thing is a real thing. I can trust her. She's starting to get me. And so I can reveal myself, and it makes them more comfortable to be a little bit more vulnerable, to share a little bit more, to share a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And so that really goes into the idea of being able to qualify clients as whole humans, right? They are
Right.
far more than just this trip request that they have. There's more to them. The more you understand, the better you're able to actually deliver on the trip experience that they're looking for. So I think one of the things you told me was you don't and I'm learning, I am a slow to adopt maybe. But this idea of like a shorter questionnaire, um tell me kind of like your process in terms of what is it that you gather just kind of like in order to have a conversation, and then we're going to go into like what the conversation entails, because I started off with like, write me your whole everything that I might want to know. You put into words all of these things, and then I'll gain from it what I think is important, and I'll make the call on whether or not we should have a consultation. And there's been a couple of conversations that I've had recently which kind of has shifted my mind a bit on this approach and opened me up to where this year I'm doing less on the front end of like answer all my questions, fast go, get past the, guards, all of these things versus being open to entering into the relationship on a call and really doing the deep dive there. So, where do you start with the process in terms of the questionnaire aspect on your website? Let's start there and then go into kind of like the call itself.
Yeah. I think it starts with the client doesn't know what they don't know. And
Mhm.
so by asking them to write the brief for you, they don't have the words. They don't have the vocabulary. We have to assume that they're coming from a place where they might not have done a whole lot of Google research or they might not have talked to a bunch of friends. So to pepper them with a 25 question questionnaire on what kind of atmosphere is really important to them at a hotel isn't meaningful because they just don't have the experience. And that's where we really can add the value. And it becomes frustrating when we ask a whole bunch of questions because I used to have that really long questionnaire and I was getting meaning unhelpful information from the client because they didn't know what they didn't know. So I've modified my process to be it's about an 8 question questionnaire just for some conceptual ideas of understanding where they are from a knowledge perspective as thought starters.
Mhm.
What research have you learned? I asked that question deliberately. Where are you getting your ideas from? How far along are you in the planning process? And importantly, what's the inspiration for this trip? Are you, and I may prompt them, are you celebrating something or is this a dream trip that you've always had? So my questionnaire from a web facing perspective is really short. It's just enough to calibrate. And then if I think it's a good fit, I have some red flag filters in there too. Like they want to do everything on points. And I'm like, that's probably not the best trip for a travel advisor to help you with. Um, and then we set up a consultation call. But it at least gives me a little bit of information to kind of prep for that call. So I know where they're starting from, where their starting point is. And then that guides the interview process, the discussion process we have in our very first consultation call.
That's really great. So the emphasis for those of you guys listening who are just kind of struggling with the balance, and there's again never going to be like a hard line right or wrong, but I think the point here is to open your mind to the idea that like truly would be lovely if somebody could just like give us the all the insight and the answers and the whatever that we're looking for in this beautiful form. They just understand all the things we want them to understand. They know what it is they're supposed to care about and not care about. But that's really not reality. And a lot of times depending on like how well traveled somebody is or how many experiences they've had working designing trips on their own or working with somebody, they're going to come at it from like different perspectives. And so our goal with the form that we have on our websites or however we start the process is really to just get the bare minimum, for lack of a better phrase, of hey, is this the right, are they in the right ballpark for utilizing my services, for me being valuable to them? If so, let's have a conversation so that we can uncover what is actually important, what I need to like know about them, what I need to know about this experience, and make them feel seen by the questions I'm asking them in real time versus the more impersonal way of gathering the information from a form. So I'm with you. I've been a slow adopter, like I said, but I am with you. And 2025 has me doing things differently myself. So let's move into this actual call, consultation wise, that we're having with clients. I want to give, if possible, some tangible ways that people understand the way that we can approach these calls, the things that we can ask, and what we're listening for in response. Also, kind of, it's a skill that you're going to get better with time, learning to ask the right questions, but also being very good at listening. And then how do we follow up? What other things can like this might point us in this direction? Oh, you said this. This makes me think of this. Those types of things. So I want to kind of give an idea of your way of asking either pointed or open-ended questions that you find to be most effective in understanding what their inspiration is, what their goals are when you start a consultation call.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, video is king. Because you can looking at the other person in the eye, watching their body language, seeing how they're interacting with the other people that might be in your Zoom room, whether it's their spouse or their girlfriend that's on the call, right? That has been a huge enabler and trust builder because
Mm,
they can see me as well. So they're seeing my facial expressions and they can see my level of engagement with them, which means I'm not multitasking when I'm on the Zoom with them. They have my undivided attention, and if I'm looking at the other screen, I'm explaining to them, "Oh, let me look on the map." So it's a trust building process for me. And so I exclusively Zoom. And if it's going to be a 5 minutes, then I'll do a phone call. But almost always it's a Zoom process. And then if it's a first client meeting, we start with just some warm ups of getting to know each other, just like you would get to know somebody at a cocktail party or having coffee with a bunch of friends. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? And what types of trips have you gone on in the past? That's a really important trip to kind of calibrate.
mm,
Are they well traveled? Have they done a lot of Europe and now they're ready to expand into South America? Or maybe they're really big beach folks that are looking to do something different than the beach that they haven't ever done before. So, but talking about their past trips helps you to understand kind of where they are on the spectrum. Are they apartment type folks where a condo in Hawaii might be a great fit, or are they five-star service kind of folks? And so that kind of narrows your portfolio, points you in the right direction. Well, what do you like to do while you're on vacation? Do you like to kind of hang out at the beach? Do you like to do sightseeing? Do you like to have a lot of activities? That's going to help me figure out the type of program I want to put together, which is whether it's really flexible or a more structured program, and the level of service that we want to provide. But really, it's a high level get to know you. Just tell me about yourself. But the second part of that is tell me about who's traveling with you, right? If I had a call the other day with three ladies, they're celebrating their 70th birthday and they want to go to Italy. And it was a really fun conversation because one lady, this was her dream, and the two other ladies, they were coming along because it sounded like an awesome dream. But I do a different consultation call for a family that wants to go to Italy where their kids are learning about world history and they want to go see the famous sites of Italy, right? That setup. Tell me about your kids. What are they learning in school? Tell me why Tuscany's always been a dream for you. So, also understanding the who else is coming on this trip is a huge part of understanding the mechanics and the logistics of the trip, but also continuing to build that trust factor by genuinely caring about the other people that are going to be part of this program so that you feel like you're getting to know them and getting to know everybody on the trip. And maybe if you've got a soccer fanatic who wants to go to Spain, oh, maybe can we, is there a soccer game going on, Real Madrid or something like that, right? There's those kinds of insights that have the potential to be real delighters. Or if you've got somebody who's been a dancer and they might want to go to a theater performance. So understanding again that whole person as part of that, initial 10 to 15 minutes of the conversation gives you material to leverage then as you are ideating and building out. Well, here's what your itinerary could look like. So I spend a lot of time just getting to know them. And then that's when we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of when do you want to go? When do you want to fly? What kind of hotels do you like to stay at? But that's really where all the warm up is coming from.
So the first 10 to 15 minutes is kind of like get to know you. What do you like to travel? How do you kind of, so I think we all deal with this, right? Sometimes we have chatty Cathys. Oh, let me tell you about myself. Let me tell you about this idea, like all the things. They have all the things that they need to share and blah, blah, blah. Other times you have clients who are like, I just want to go to Italy. Oh, I saw, some photos that were pretty. Like pulling teeth, right? I don't know who you are. I cannot get a gauge on like what you want. You're giving me very generic answers and you're pretty vague. And I really just feel like, do you have some, I don't know, maybe ways where when it's a little bit harder to kind of find somebody, I would say, ways that you get them to actually, because sometimes I think it could be one of two things. They really don't know. Like maybe they haven't traveled a lot, or maybe they really don't have strong opinions. Maybe this is just kind of like they said Italy because their sister went to Italy and she loved it. So I should probably go there too. And do you have ways you kind of like get past that initial like vagueness or, okay, shoot, I didn't really get much from those questions?
Sure. Yeah. And that's a hard one. And because you're right, some people just don't know how to open up or just don't have the knowledge base yet to build that. So one of the questions I use is, so where'd the inspiration come for this trip? Why are you excited about to go to Italy? And
Mhm.
sometimes I get, oh, because my friend went and it was a great time. Or sometimes it's, well, it's her 70th birthday and we really want to celebrate, right? So sometimes you get a
Mhm.
great answer and sometimes it's a bit shallow or just uninformative. Well, what kind of research have you done already? Have you been looking on the internet? Have you been looking in Facebook groups? Was there a TV show that inspired you, right? We've got Outlander, we've got Downton Abbey, we've got, what is it? Thailand's going to be big next year. Thank you, White Lotus, very much. Right? Was there a TV program? So you can kind of feel around for where did they get this idea? Where was the spark? There was a
Mhm.
why, there was a spark somewhere on the way that inspired this trip. Maybe it's a birthday. I'm getting a lot of semester abroad families who want to meet their college student over there,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
they did semester abroad and they want to go back and recreate some memories. So there's a lot of different sparks that can come. You just kind of have to keep digging a little bit on those. In the absence of that spark, I actually had a conversation like this the other day about Peru, where I asked the question, so what's the inspiration for Peru? And he's like, well, it's always something we've just wanted to do, not super helpful or informative. And I said, So that's when you bring your expertise and your advisory into play. And this is where doing your homework ahead of time will help you be an advisor. Oh, okay. So are you interested in classical Peru, like going to the Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu and the ancient ruins? Or are you interested in something a little bit more off the beaten path? That's when your expertise,
Mhm.
when they're giving you not much to work with, shine a little bit, having done your homework ahead of time, or thank you, Chat GPT on the side where you are pulling stuff in real time where you're like, okay, I need some ideas. Or maybe they've told you, well, we've always wanted to see, Machu Picchu in the month of February, something. You should be Googling right on the spot or using your favorite AI tool. Is that a good season to go? Right?
Mhm.
What's the weather like there? So now you're engaging in active dialogue with them about, oh, that's a great season to go. The weather's really nice and the crowds are relatively low. Or, gee, that's the rainy season. We're going to have to think about this a little bit more carefully. So you are reacting to the information that they're feeding with you in real time and building and iterating live in the process. And by doing that, the client feels heard because you are actively engaging instead of saying, well, let me get back to you on that. But at the same time, you are giving them more information that they can start to digest and internalize and then start to play back to you. So it's a kind of a two-step process. And sometimes for folks that don't know, um, I had clients come to me for Costa Rica not too long ago, and it was kind of this big, vague idea. And we've done our third consultation, but we're getting there to a trip. They needed to have some ideas to react to in order to help polish their vision, to even create their vision and polish it. And that's part of our role as advisors and
Yeah.
educators,
Yeah.
to be sharing our expertise about the destination with the client to say, is this really what you were looking for? Are you looking for a local immersive experience, or are you looking for more of a resort type experience? So, um, when you get those not talkative clients, that's when your advisor skills need to go into overdrive.
That's a really good point, and I know that, like, this is, again, it's a skill, right? So when you're newer to the game and you haven't been doing this long, or maybe even your personal destination knowledge, or the information you have at the tip of your fingers is not the best. It is going to be a skill, but I think there's something super important in realizing, even when you said, a lot of times it's very easy to stop and just take that for face value of, like, oh, it just seemed like a really interesting place to go, and leave it there. They gave me an answer. I'm writing in my notes. They think it's interesting. Peru seems interesting, and I just go along. And I'm saying this because I have done this in the past. I have very much felt like, okay, that's their answer, and I don't press it further. But what you're saying, and I do agree, and I feel like this is a muscle that we need to exercise, but also trusting ourselves to be able to do this, is be like, okay, I hear you. Peru seems interesting. That's actually a true statement, but it doesn't help me actually kind of like really customize a bespoke experience for you. So now I'm going to say, hey, this or that. Or are you more drawn this way? Or are you more drawn that way? And so those are some things that you can start to think through and plan for in advance, right? They said they wanted to go to a trip to Peru, but you saw nothing in their form that said why, or what Peru about Peru was interesting. And so you kind of, in your mind, in your back pocket, have this, like, well, I want to kind of understand if they're looking for this type of trip to Peru or this type of trip to Peru. And so if they don't tell me that in our conversation, I'm going to push that a little bit further. I'm going to ask the follow-up questions. I'm going to see where else we can go with it. So I think that is a really good skill to have, to know that when you get an answer that actually doesn't give you much, it's our job as the advisor to be like, I hear you. That's great. Now, how can I help us uncover a little bit more here, and not take that nice generic answer at face value and just move along, because that's the easy thing to do. And we've probably all done it at some point, but it doesn't actually help us deliver in the best way possible. So I love that kind of that point. I want to circle back really quick because I know you started with saying it was super important to do Zoom calls. I agree with you. And I'm also super still like, and maybe it's partly a volume thing for me, and partly a, like, do I have to get dressed today thing for me. But I do find that number one, it's far more personal. And you're right with the like the cues and the building report. Like it's so much easier when you also have that visual element. And so it's something to consider if you don't already do a Zoom call or some sort of video call, how that might benefit you in building the rapport that you're hoping to, and to really feel a connection, because people say yes and are more bought in when they feel like this is a genuine person who actually cares about my experience and has a lot of knowledge and is asking me really great questions. Of course, I want to work with them. Like, that's a no brainer. You get one step deeper when you do have that like video element. And so I'm affirming you, even though I'm not fully bought in yet myself.
And I'm gonna totally agree. It can be very time consuming, right? Because
Yeah.
there's this tendency to make the chit chat and want to get to know them, and then you get into it, and then it kind of carries along 5 minutes. So my calls are set up on a 45-minute window with 15 minutes buffer, but then I leave myself 30 minutes after that call to make my notes and to write things down that I haven't captured in real time. I will say, yeah, it feels like a heavy investment, but it pays out in accelerating other aspects of the program.
100%.
And let's think about this. I don't do Caribbean. So I'm not doing, a 4-star resort for a week to Cancun. I do custom Europe, custom safari, custom South America, custom international. These are big trips of a lifetime for the
Mhm.
family. And so we're not, spending just a little bit of money here. And so I take that role very seriously. And I want my clients to know that I take that seriously, that I'm protecting their financial investment and that I have their best interests in heart. And I emphasize throughout my call, this is fully customized to your interest, to what you want. So if I come back with a proposal that doesn't quite fit, let's have that conversation and let's, tweak it and adjust it. And by looking them in the eye to have that conversation, I believe I come across as much more genuine because I'm not trying to kind of zhush it through the whole program. I'm not trying to fast track everything. Time is one of the gifts that I give to my clients, to really listen to them and make
Mhm.
sure that it's exactly what they want.
That's good. That's good. Another thing I just thought of too, that is another point for using video or something like Zoom, is that because there is also now the AI feature of making notes, giving you a summary of what you talked about, all of those things, which, if in the moment you're not taking the copious notes that you want, or you forgot like something, you literally have services that like give you a recap of a whole conversation that you do on video, to where you can even be more present in the actual conversation, knowing that there's a note taker in the background doing
Right.
all that work for you. So that's another thing that like it really is like, for sure making me think how I approach that aspect of consult calls as well. So the first 15 minutes or so, building that relationship, building that rapport, getting into kind of like what they're looking for, why, all of that stuff. How deep do you get, or what kind of questions do you get into that is specific to their actual trip? So like if somebody is, say, going to, Italy, and they like the 70-year-olds or what have you, are you asking them specifically the things that they're going to do, that like, are you giving them specifics, or are you staying bigger picture on how do you want to feel? What types of experiences do you like? Do you get into the nitty gritty on a consult call of like, are we going to go see the Statue of David at the Academia, or are we going to, tell me about how you get into like that next level of questions with your clients?
And it depends on the client. It depends
Okay.
on where we are in the planning process. The 70-year-old birthday party, awesome, I love it. They're planning 15 months in advance, right? We are way far out. So we were really focusing more higher level on, how do you envision this coming across? Are you comfortable driving a car? What kinds of things would you like to do? And, we talked about, we want the cooking class, we want the olive oil. Yeah, we just want one day in Florence. We didn't drill down all the way to the actual detailed execution because they have a very long runway. For some clients, it is getting to that. Well, how do you want to feel? What's that atmosphere that you want to be experiencing at your lodging, whether that's 5-star service or more of a boutique kind of feel? Um, but with some things that are nearer in, I'll come back to the Peru option because that's just a couple months out. We were starting to get into the specifics of here's what day 1 looks like, here's what day 2, here's the logistics of how we would move you from place to place. We can do everything from this type of hotel on the low end to this type of hotel on the high end. What's going to work best for you? You have 2 children. What sleeping arrangement is going to work best for the 4 of you? So if it's closer in, then we're getting into those details. Often what happens for my longer lead time clients or my clients who are starting from a place of concept with not a lot of detail
Mhm.
is that they need to go off and think, and we come back and we have another call the following
Mm.
week because I will have sent them an email with some thought starter ideas and some web links and some research tools because oftentimes our gut, our stomach just needs to kind of see, does this fit right? Does this match to the vision that I was creating? And not everybody can make decisions on the fly. We do
Mhm.
travel all the time, so it's obvious to us what the decision should be. My experience is that my clients appreciate time to think and consider. They are also busy people with busy lives, so this may not be the top priority on their list. So often we come back for a second consult, even before I start researching prices, even before I start doing hotels. And again, it's that time commitment that pays off because the client feels heard and they're more satisfied with the proposal because we've spent more time kind of zhuzhing it out a little bit instead of me leaping into a proposal that ends up being completely off base and not at all what they thought. So it depends on where we are in the planning process and meeting the client where they're at of what's already their knowledge level, what's their understanding.
Okay, I love this. I'm a little bit scared of it also because again, so you're right, and that is it's a lot of time. It's a lot of it's a big time commitment. Not that it's not worth it, right? Because if you think about number one, the investment on their end is very large, and so the idea that we're saying, hey, you get one, whatever it is, 20-minute phone call, one 30-minute phone call, and then that's it. We're gonna know what we're doing. We're gonna know the way we're headed, and there you go. That's all there is to kind of like the prep phase versus utilizing this idea that like it is a big investment on their end. It matters a lot. It also is, you are going to earn a lot from working with this client, and you want to make sure that like what you're delivering is super on point for what they're paying, and also like what you're going to make as well, because I feel like you think through both sides of it, right? We can't spend whatever the amount of time is when like the earning for that amount of time is small. Like it has to add up in terms of like what's worth our time and all of that. So I get like considering it from all angles. And then my I don't even know what I would call it, my brain side that wants to be super productive, go forward, get it done, is like another call. But I get how that could matter and make a difference to people's overall experiences. Out of curiosity, how many hours on a weekly or a monthly basis are you spending in like calls?
Well, we haven't talked about the pre-departure call and we
I
haven't talked about the return call,
know.
right?
You're on calls a whole bunch, I feel like.
I am. And because I'm so passionate about relationship marketing and knowing my client and empowering my clients to be successful travelers, that I would say in a typical planning process, there is 4 to 5 hours of phone, face, and Zoom time between the planning, the pre departure, and the post call. And that doesn't even count the research time and the prep time and all the work I'm doing in the background. Um, but I have it's working
Mhm.
because I have a repeat rate and the pre-departure call, that's all about client education and teaching them the tech tools that we've got or helping them understand this is the meeting point for your tour and that empowers them so that on their vacation, they're on their vacation and they're like, oh, yeah, Lisa told me how to do this. Instead of calling me in a panic, Lisa, we can't find our guide. I've trained them ahead of time to know that, or to navigate a train station, and so they feel empowered, and it's more rewarding for them because they're ready with that knowledge, they're ready with that expertise because we spend that upfront time.
Okay, yes. We're going to put a pin in that because I'm coming back to this idea of like the other calls that you do. Before we wrap up this first initial consultation call, the other thing that I want to kind of like talk through, role play, get your opinions on is because this is a part that a lot of advisors get a little bit tripped up on, don't feel comfortable with, kind of like feel a little bit backed in the corner. So that has to do with like handling the budget conversation tactfully. You want to you need to know, right? You need to know where what we're talking about here. What type of proposal am I building? What type of DMC am I working with? What level of hotels are we talking about? And matching the experience they've explained with what it's actually going to cost is sometimes a mismatch. And so, how do we have that conversation? So, give me some like real life. Here's how I approach it. These are the questions I ask. This is how I ask them to think of it. This is how I do the follow-up question when they don't give me the answer I need. How do you approach that part of the conversation in the initial consult call?
Yeah, and I think it's really fair because clients don't know what they don't know, right? Because it's easy when you can look on Costco.com or whatever advertising and they're like, "Oh, two people going to this resort in the Caribbean,
Mhm.
3,500 a person or something like that," right? They can envision that pricing because they've probably taken that trip or they see the advertising for that trip. Similar for a Caribbean cruise. For a custom trip to Europe or Australia, they have no idea because they've not ever planned a trip like this before. Hotels are priced dramatically different in other countries in terms of the similar quality. I'm sure you've had the client say, "Oh, I just need to stay at a Hampton Inn. That'll be fine." Right? How many times
Just
have
a
we
place
had
to
that
sleep.
experience?
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm gonna be
and
out
I'm
all day. I just need a place to sleep. Yeah.
right, right.
Oh, thank you.
Clean and safe. And then I'm like,
Really
but
safe.
that's not so informative. So it's an absolutely fair question. And I'm still working
Yeah.
on getting better with this conversation. So some thought starters there of, well, have you done any research, or is there a hotel that somebody maybe has recommended to you or that you've heard about that sounds really kind of like your jam? Like, would you like to stay at that? And if they give you a name, then you can, you know, do you have a tool right in front of you? You can quote that in real time. Oh, well, that property runs about this for your dates of travel. Does that feel reasonable for you? So that's one way to kind of tackle it. Get them to give you a piece of information and feed them back a dollar value just on a per night basis. I've had clients contact me for Amalfi in August wanting that for $400 a night. And so in real time, because they'll pull a number out of the air. I'm like, well, the lowest property in my portfolio for your dates is this in real time. How do you feel about that? And that client actually said, whoa, that's way above my budget. I need to rethink that. So knowing where you can pull your numbers from, even on just hotel nights, is really valuable because it gives the client something to think about. As one example, pulling airfare, I think, is really valuable because some people have no idea what airfare costs, and they think we can
Yeah.
get to Europe for an economy ticket for 1,200 bucks a person. That's
In
not
August.
happening right now, right? Right. Oh, yeah, and I want the extra legroom seat too, right? And I'm like, so if you have the ability to, in real time, quote a legitimate price for airfare, particularly if you're talking about a family where you've got multiple airplane tickets, then you can at least get the airplane tickets on the board to say, wow, family of four wanting to fly to France in premium economy seating for your dates of travel, $2,500 a person, family of four. So that's $10,000 just to have airplane tickets. But you position it so that how do you feel about that? Is that comfortable for you? And let them think about it and react to it that way. So, airplane tickets in real time is another example. The third way that I do it is we talk about the trip conceptually and we say, these are the kinds of experiences that we want. These are the kind of hotels that we want. And if they don't have any idea, or maybe I need more time, after the call and when I send my follow up, I will build a price on my side, a hypothetical price. It's like, okay, they want 4.5 star resorts, they want half day tours every other day, and they want airport transfers all the way around, and we're doing 3 cities in Europe, and we've got to do train tickets. It's possible to do quite literally the cocktail
Multiple,
napkin
yeah.
calculation.
Yeah.
And so then when I play back to them in our summary follow-up, "Hey, it was such a pleasure to speak with you about your trip to Italy. This sounds like really exciting for your family. Here's what we outlined: Rome, Florence, Venice with four-star hotels." I play back the outline,
Mhm.
and then it becomes an experience like this will be approximate total cost of low end to high end. And you give them that total dollar number range. And
Mhm.
you very specifically say, this does or does not include international air or whatever you haven't built into that equation. And then they've received that as an email, and then they have the opportunity to think about, how do I feel about that as a budget? Is that consistent with what I thought I had? Does that feel on par, in line? Or, wow, that's better than I expected. Maybe we could go up to five-star hotels, or wow, that's way over my budget. So I build it for them after the call and let them react to it, because they have a vision for what they want. Your vision costs this. What's our
Yeah.
expression? Champagne taste on a beer budget, right?
Yeah.
We've said
Yeah.
that numerous times. Um, and, sometimes they have that because they're just not calibrated to that experience. But there's a lot of different ways you can come at the budget question. The important thing is to come at it, one, from a positive perspective. Oh gosh, those tickets are going to cost, right? You don't want to deliver it in a negative tone. You always want to be positive, and you always want to focus on the vision of their experience that they want. This is what it's going to cost you. Are
Right.
you willing to invest this hard earned money to
Yeah.
have this kind of experience?
Yeah.
Sometimes they rethink their experience to bring the budget down a little bit. Sometimes they're like, yeah, my budget can handle that. But focus on it from a, what's the experience that they've envisioned, and then give them a dollar to react to,
Yeah.
rather than relying on them to say, oh, I can do this for
Exactly.
$15,000 or something like that. That's where, again, our advisory services and our
Yeah.
expertise really come into play.
Yeah, I think that is it's a hard thing for advisors, especially when they're new, because sometimes they don't have that working knowledge of what things cost in destinations. But when you've done it enough times, I can tell you the Rome, Florence, Venice costs at 4-star, 5-star, whatever, like in my sleep, because I've done that trip so much. But I think you're right in a couple of different ways. And Whitney does a great job. She is the person to tell you on the phone, like, the experience you just explained is going to run this. Are you good with that or not? And she knows just how to pull that out. I'm more of the like follow up with an email type as well. I also feel like, this is never an issue when the budget they've put forth is fabulous, right? I'm always like, yay, we don't got to worry about it. Whatever you just explained, we have that and some. So we're good. It's always when it seems to be a mismatch, or their understanding of what things truly cost. Because even with the idea of like, hey, we love this hotel, a lot of times people can get stuck with like, this cost for the hotel times 10 nights is this amount of money. And you're like, well, the hotels are only 50% of the budget, or 70%, whatever their overall trip looks like. They get stuck with like, what do hotel and flights cost? Because usually when people DIY things, they focus on those costs, and all the other costs just get lost in the shuffle of vacation. They're not pre-planning things, they're taking Ubers. And so overall costs, they've never really like taken a hard look at in terms of like how we package things. So I think there's that misunderstanding. But also, you know when you are looking at private guided experiences and private transfers and stuff like that, like how big of a percentage that could be in your overall trip costs. And so the one way that I like to talk about it as well on a consultation call is, if I'm getting the sense that like, hey, we've talked about this experience, I really understand what you're looking for, and I understand that destination and the cost there. I try to find out like where they're comfortable, like what investment they had in mind, if they put something aside, if this is like, whatever, because sometimes there's different ways people approach paying for their vacations. But then I like for them to tell me, if we need to compromise somewhere, where does the compromise come from that you would feel most comfortable with? Is it less days so that we can still stay at the 5-star resorts? Is it, a lower level of room category so we can still have 12 nights in destination? Is it a few less, guided experiences and more of a like you know, explore the day on your own, but giving them the opportunity to decide what's the priority. Um, and also communicating that, like, this whole experience and the investment you are hoping for is not really a match. But if we consider making this change, that might make it work. If we consider making, but you tell me where you would like to make that compromise. I liked that wording because it comes from, like, what's a priority from that for them. And it also gives me a way to explain, like, we're gonna have to change something here. Like, this doesn't all add
Right,
up.
right.
But it
I
is a
think
conversation we have to have.
I think again, this is where our expertise and being able to articulate the value of each
Mhm,
product that we're offering to our clients and being able to articulate, this is my word for 2025, is differentiation. What's
mhm,
the difference between this hotel and that hotel? Why is it X number of dollars more per night? Is it location? Is it service? Is it room size? Is it restaurants on property? Is it because they have, spa, pool, and sauna, what have you? But and most of the time it's location driven and room size driven, right? But we have to be able to articulate that for our clients of what's meaningful so they can decide about, is this hotel worth that value?
yeah,
And from a touring perspective, we can talk about, hey, this is what a private tour costs you, and this is what a small group tour costs you. So sometimes if I'm reading a client based on what I think their budget might be, I might say, okay, the four-star hotel with four-star hotels with small group touring is going to be in this price range. And the 4.5-star hotels with private touring is going to be in that range. So then at least they can react to, oh, the vision for what I wanted versus the vision for what I can afford. Right.
mhm,
And so being able to articulate the value because we have that expertise, we have the ability to use those research tools will help our clients to appreciate the product that we're offering. And maybe they want an expert historian guide to walk them through this, famous city and they're willing to invest in the private tour, but they're like, you know what? A four-star hotel is perfectly fine. I don't need the 4.5-star hotel. And often it's splitting the difference. And some people are like, no, we don't want any tours, but we really want awesome hotel experiences. So we want to invest our dollar in the hotels. So it's that value and articulation and differentiation where we can bring our advisory expertise to light. And then they will start again building that trust with the clients. Oh, she really knows her stuff. She knows what she's
mhm,
talking about.
100%. Okay. I want to circle back now to the thing that I made you stick a pin in just a couple of minutes ago, because I appreciate your approach to this. And I know you have, or you can push back to me, because I am like a huge, I'm going to send you a Loom video and send you on your way type of advisor. I love me a Loom video. But you have a different approach. And so this podcast is all about, like, learning from advisors who are doing things a certain way and they find success with that. And so I want you to explain, A, why a Loom video might not be the best approach, and B, the approach that you take and the success you see with how you set your clients up for success to feel confident and prepared before they travel.
Yeah. So I'm a tech nerd. Like I build my own spreadsheets. I love tech. As I've been in this business for 9 years now, a lot of my clients don't get tech in the same way that I do as an engineer or a millennial might get it because they've grown up with it. So my app is fabulous, but a lot of my clients can't even figure out how to log in, or they lose the email, or they don't understand the links in the PDFs. So probably 30 minutes of our pre-departure meeting is spent on me teaching the client the tech
Mhm.
and how to navigate the tech because I've built them this beautiful itinerary and there's a web link in there say if you want to learn how to use the itinerary tool, watch this video. They don't get that, they don't see that, and so I'm like, okay, once I figured out that they needed my help to teach them the tech, here's the web link to your meeting point. Let's talk the tech and then let's walk through your itinerary day by day. And I quite literally point out every web link and every attachment. And I point out here are the vouchers that you need to print out. And here's the, the like I really do walk them through it on dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And it's 45 minutes of me talking and then probably 15 to 30 minutes of airtime. That investment is hugely empowering to my clients because I feel like I have taught them as much as I can so that they can navigate their trip on their own or with my DMC and country partner as their primary resource. Because I never want anybody to come back and say, Lisa, you didn't tell me. And, I would never say, well, yes, I did, but I feel better. I feel more
Mhm.
confident in the product that I'm offering and the services that I'm offering to my client, knowing that I have taught them to the best of my ability and that the tech is not the barrier. So it's easy to think, oh, a Loom video will be able to handle all that. A lot of people don't know what a Loom video is. I have a lot of families, or they're too busy, or they don't have time to read the PDF, so I need to walk them through the PDF. So it's this trend that I noticed a couple years ago post pandemic, because a lot of people forgot how to travel, thank you pandemic, so I'm teaching them again.
Yeah,
And
that's
you're
true.
and you're like, "Oh, I can see it in your eyes, Brianna. Oh my gosh, 90 minutes on a pre-departure call every time." I can hear you going, "I can't possibly do that." I will tell you, the dividend pays out because on trip number 2, it's a 60-minute call. On trip number 3, it's a 45-minute call. Once they're with you, they come back from the trip and they say, "I love the app." I'm not kidding. How many times people say, "Oh my gosh, the app was so awesome." And then when you've built this relationship with the clients where they've been with you for a while, you don't have to have the call anymore because you've taught them how you're operating. You've taught them what to expect from you. This gets a little complicated when different DMCs use different tech platforms, right? You've got Axis and UMapped and Way2 and all the different platforms. But the tools become the same and so the clients become, more empowered to do that. So there's a huge amount of time that we spend investing in the nuts and bolts of the process. Again, more trust building, more knowledge building, and then on the back half of that call is open airtime where they can, oh, just one more question. Oh, just one more question. Where they're asking me about electricity, where they're asking me about currency, where they're asking me about gratuities. And all of that data is actually in the app. It's in the documents that I've given them, but they didn't know to read it. So then again, it's more training of, oh, this is where we can find that. Let's look at it together. And so now I'm empowering them, not for the products that I've sold them, not for their hotel, for the tour, but for the everyday living part of travel and
Mhm.
being confident and successfully navigating. Oh, yes, Google Translate works very well in that country. Um, where do we get cash? I've had the ATM conversation so many times, but
So many times. Yeah.
call your bank first. I get asked about SIM cards all the time. All of these are not things that are not the products that we're offering, but they are the knowledge and the security and the peace of mind that we are providing to our clients as service providers. And it's that high touch service where they're like, "Oh my gosh, she answered all of my questions." My clients feel heard as
Mhm.
part of that pre-departure conversation, and so usually there's a couple emails that follow that up. And I'm available to them while they're traveling as well by email and phone. Um, but it is a big investment of time. I will admit that, but it pays off because the subsequent trips,
Mhm.
they get it. They understand the workflow, and so it becomes a much faster process for subsequent trips.
Yeah, which yes, thank goodness. But
Yeah.
I think the important thing that you're saying, which I want people to kind of like hold on to, is there's so much we have personal brands. We're small businesses with personal brands, and there's so much about branding that has to do with how you make people feel. And so when you make your clients feel heard, like you said, and seen and confident and special and all of those things that goes very hand in hand with like the brand that you've created and the reason why your clients choose you. So I see the importance. I also see, listen, like if you do have a book of business full of millennials, this might not be your approach. They might be like, "Are you kidding me? I'm
Exactly.
not going on a phone with you." Like
Right.
I got the app. I'm good.
Right.
And
And
so
And it's a
You have to
difference
know
of,
that.
can they Google it themselves or do they want you to Google it for them?
Yeah.
And
If
I have a
that's
lot
the
of
way they
clients.
feel special, if that's the way they feel heard, and then you meet that need because that's the business you've built. And so knowing your clients, knowing your brand, and then you gotta give give your people what they want. That's what's going to make them come back. So you have to know your people first, then know what they want and need, and then choose to give it to them. And you've clearly made the relationship forward approach in building your travel business and having that be the driver of your repeat and your referral, which is excellent. And so it works for you. And I feel like there's something to be said because there's a lot of people, myself included, that will preach from the rooftops about Loom videos. But I 100% know the clients that, like, that's not going to be enough. Like, I know the clients where I'm like, yep, this is going to be another phone call. They don't feel comfortable. I can tell by the way they're emailing me that they feel like they're just not sure. And in my mind, I'm like, that's right in the email. That's right in the info and doc section. Why are we talking about this? But it's not about me. At that point, it's not about me. At the end of the day, I do fully want them to have the best experience possible for them to feel seen and heard. And so I know I might not have fully the same type of, client base, but I have those clients. And so I have to be aware of that and react accordingly. Otherwise, you're right. It's like, even if everything is perfect, their hotels, their guides, their tours, all ideal. If they feel before they even leave, that's not the right send off, right? So being aware of that is super important.
Yep.
We've talked so much about all of these great topics. I feel like you hit the nail on the head with making sure that we called this episode relationship marketing, because relationships is what this business is built on. It's how we find success, and it's how we, like you said, differentiate ourselves. What type of relationships are we building with our clients? And at the end of the day, that does make the most strong brand possible, is how we make people feel. And so I think you've demonstrated how well you do this in real life and the ways that you do this. And so thank you for just kind of like sharing your approach, sharing how you talk to clients, why you talk to clients, how much you talk to clients. I feel that there is something to be learned and taken from it. And so I hope that everybody did find their little nugget and food for thought and things to try and ways to approach how we market and how we interact with our clients differently to produce the best outcome possible. Hopefully that's what people got from it.
Yeah. I'd love to share one more thing that's just super fun,
Please.
and it's my favorite part of the whole planning process. And
Okay.
that's, and you're going to say, not another meeting. Yes, another meeting. And I promise this, but it's the post-trip meeting. It's the
Okay.
come home
Okay.
meeting.
Yes. Tell me about this.
And I have a work process because nobody wants to hear from me the very first day they get back. I let them settle back into their routine, and typically the Zoom is about 10 days after the call.
Another Zoom. Oh.
Another Zoom, and this is why. We talk about, like, that we're in this for the money, right? That's why we do a job. The non-monetary, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get emotional.
Aw.
The joy
Yeah.
that they share with me
Yeah.
is amazing, and it's my favorite part of the day. The memories that I'm helping create, and I get to be a part of that because I get to see the debrief and the after. It makes the hours of investment really worthwhile when somebody comes home and says, "That was the most amazing week of my life." I did a family reunion cruise in August, 20 people, um, doing a family heritage tour. The family is still talking about it, and my client is still telling me when I talk to her once a month that they're still talking about it. So there's obviously this joy that resonates with sharing out that experience, that shared experience. So don't miss the opportunity to get some love back, I guess. is
No,
what I
that
would say.
yeah. I mean, you're so right in the fact that like what makes I mean, there's so much we love what we do, right? I feel like anybody who picks this as a career, who chooses this industry as like the way that they're going to move forward in their entrepreneurial journey does so not only for the love of travel, but for the love of people, right? Like we understand the huge like honor it is to take somebody's most cherished memories, their most important, their this is what they're spending their leisure time, their money, their all of the things, and it's so important. And they're saying, here, we trust you to help make it amazing. We trust you to take our dreams and make them a reality. And that's a big responsibility. And it's also a huge honor. And so we take that on. We do all the work. We spend hours and months and whatever doing all this. We send them off to have the like, wow, this was amazing. And here's why. Here's how we felt when we had this experience. Here's what it meant to like do this for, to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. Here's what incredible like memories we have at our family reunion because you made this all possible. That really is like such a cherry on top, but it makes it all worth it because otherwise, you're right. It becomes transactional. It becomes like showing up for a job, doing your job, earning the paycheck. That's what it is. But to have a response like this means number one, you care so much. And also, like, you receive that fruits of your labor by like the joy that they get to share with you. And you've made it possible for them to share it like legitimately, like one on one. Let me hear, let me download, let me take it all in so that I can now also feel that same joy and excitement from what I did and from how I participated. So I think there's no better like thank you. And there's no better way to feel like, wow, what I do matters. Like it really, really matters. And this is really, really important part of people's lives that I get to be a part of. And what an honor and what a blessing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, and it's really powerful. On the days when I'm really frustrated,
that's what
and
you go
I'm,
back
like,
to.
in the weeds, right? And when a client comes back and says to you, "Lisa, the best part of our 12-day road trip to Iceland was the conversations in the car."
Hmm. Yeah. So good.
Really
Yeah.
good.
So good. So good. Well, if that's not a invitation for you to make sure that you are building relationships and having conversations with clients so that you not only do the work on the front end to make it a fabulous trip, but you also get to enjoy the experiences that you've created through the feedback that you get from your clients and making sure that you know all your hard work was worth it and that it paid off and that it is worth doing over and over and over again, even on the days that it's hard, even in the middle of January when you're buried under a million emails in your inbox and responses that you need to get to and consults that you need to have. Maybe that's just me, but I think that these are the things that make it all worth it. We are in the business of helping people make their dreams come true. And that's a pretty awesome job to have. So Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us today. Thank you for sharing your approach to travel advising. And I hope that people learn something, take something from this, and implement it into their own business to build a brand that is all about putting people first and building relationships that matter. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks.